Hey, Midlothian, we're back with the Seaman City Chatter Podcast, Candidate Edition. Today, here in the studio, we've got Ed Gardner, who is running for Midlothian City Council, Place 5.
Place 5.
Cinco.
Place 5.
This is a special election.
Yes.
Special election.
For special ed.
For those that
Oh no!
for those that don't watch the podcast every week, and maybe this is your first time, to my left is Tiffany, and she does a really good job explaining Place 5.
All right. Well, place 5 is the second to last place on the dais. It was formerly held by our mayor-elect, Justin Kaufman.
It's currently held.
Well, it's formally held because he did step down. It's held until May when the election is finalized and all the votes are canvassed. And then, so we are trying to fill that spot for 1 year. And then they'll come back for election, which is going to be so confusing for everybody. Why would you do that to yourself? I've done that, and everybody gets so confused. Especially, you're not going to go to runoff. There's only 2 of you.
Yeah, we're live.
That is like the worst.
Yeah. Well, they haven't closed.
It's not closed until March 6th.
March 6th, I think, is the cutoff for the special
It's
election.
a special election, so people can still sign up till March 6th.
The regular
Oh,
election.
I did not know
is
that.
all-
Hopefully you didn't just jinx me here.
Oh,
Knock
hell.
ho.
Yeah, so
I mean, I'm sorry if that happens.
if you really have a hankering for running for place 5, you can still make it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh.
If you still want to do that.
And I really think what we need is like 6 or 7 more candidates.
No,
in there.
we don't.
So like what really screwed my race up was that COVID came through and the governor delayed everything till November. So it went from May to November, runoff in December, refile in January. So yeah, you're not gonna have that. But like, yeah, they still people are like, I just voted for you though. You're right. You did. I need you to do it again. Please.
Live from the Opoka Palace as always. John Opoka to my right. You can't see him, but he's there. Where you at?
Hi.
There he is. There he is. Across from me through
We can't do this without John.
through the jungle of equipment, Tim Wilkins. What's up, buddy?
Hey.
Hey,
You know,
guys.
we were. I just came to the realization. I was like, man, you know, we do these podcasts. We have a 4 mic setup, and when we bring a candidate on,
Math is hard.
the math is hard. We can't figure it out. And I'm like, you know, the dynamic, Tim brings such a dynamic to the podcast as does Tiffany and John. And I made an executive decision about 15 minutes ago that Tim would,
He means like
in
15
fact,
seconds ago.
in fact, be a part of candidate
Call an
podcasts with
And
John.
You kick John's ass off and put him
We
on
did
the
not
board.
kick John
I
off.
think, I think the main
Into a
thing that I
hole.
bring to this is that people that don't like me will be real active in the comments, saying bad things about me.
I don't know. The
So-
last guy that commented that said anything bad was his only video was him puking in a bathroom stall.
Oh, we talking about the 420 guy?
The 420 guy,
420
not
guy.
even a Midlothian resident,
No,
but
I mean, as far as I could tell, I don't know.
But anyways, I thought it was very important for Tim Wilkins to be a part of this podcast. So in doing that, we'll let Tim kick it off.
Well, hey, Ed, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Well, thank you.
This is about Ed, not about Tim.
It could be. There's still time.
Okay, so
He won't do
I'm
it.
just saying,
No.
he hasn't started building his killdozer yet,
Yeah.
so it's just not going to happen.
me making an entrance to City Hall is gonna involve flames
Heavy
probably.
equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ed, some people know that you previously ran for city council, and when I've talked about your campaign previously, I have been as quick as I can to point out that you are a heck of a campaigner and that you run a very clean campaign. I think everybody would agree. You came out of nowhere and were involved with a runoff, in a runoff with somebody who is very active in the city and had kind of a built-in constituency from her previous involvement. So, kudos to the level of involvement that you got in your campaign from other people and, the just sheer number of votes you got. Going back maybe it's back before then, maybe it's just recently, but what has compelled you to run for city council originally, and then do you have another reason now, or you just are still really passionate about the reason you started?
Well, I mean, it's always going to be the same. I mean, it starts with the fact that I can't seem to keep my nose out of things.
Yeah.
So I like to be involved, and I like to help out. I see somebody who's broke down on the side of the road, and I stop to help them. That's just the kind of person I am. So I just find myself getting involved in things in order to try to help situations be better. But several things kind of drove me towards politics in Midlothian. One was, I was one of these like Walter and several others that have been annexed. We were brought into we were brought in forcefully, and there's a reason they call it forceful annexation, because we had absolutely zero say in it, and we were brought into the city.
Tiffany?
Yeah.
What is that?
Taxation.
Otation without representation. I mention that all the time.
And,
Like, what are we talking about?
We're gonna do our regular shout out to Lewis for
Lewis Ponder, yes.
Yeah.
I got
For
to know him well
spearheading-
during all that.
Yep,
and-
Lewis is-
spearheading the annexation reform in the state.
Yes, and I worked with Lewis on that, and I'm very, very proud of what he accomplished. And yes,
he's
I'm
an
a
awesome
huge
guy.
fan.
Me too. He's been on this show, and not only that, I mean, personally, he's just a really neat guy. It's so funny. I had to call him the other day.
Well, he's justice of the peace now
Right.
for our
Yeah.
district.
JP4.
For those who don't know.
Yeah, so I called him this past weekend, and he answered the phone, and it's the first time I talked to him, just one-on-one since he won, and it was pretty cool to have him answer the phone and address him. Hey, Your Honor, is that what you do with Justice of the Peace?
I don't know.
technically,
That's what I called him.
that's it.
So,
Your Honor, Your Honor.
You can.
I still call him Lewis, but
right. No, I mean, I do too, but I he's a good guy, great guy.
Okay, so Tim asked you what compelled you to run. What compelled you to put packing tape on a badass Mustang? I'm sorry,
I knew
I
that was
can't get
coming.
past
I knew that was
it.
coming. Well, the problem was those were magnets.
Okay,
And
well,
the fact is that I learned how to restore cars on that car, and I learned how to paint on that car. And I did such a horrible job the first 3 times I painted it. I kept sanding it down and repainting it. Well, now the paint's so thick on that the magnets didn't stay on very well. So I lost a magnet going down the road,
Well-
going down Main Street, and I
Had to turn around
I
and go
pulled
get
into
it.
the UPS store and I bought some packaging tape.
I just can't.
And fixed it. But
I just cannot.
it won't happen again. Don't worry. We got a solution
Thank
here going
you.
forward.
Last year I
Just
actually
save
had
me.
somebody ask me that somebody called me up. He's been on the show. He's a guy that's real active in the Midlothian Football League. He says, "Hey, Rob, who are you voting for?" Which he didn't realize I live in the county. I can't vote for city council anyways. But who you voting for? The lady or the guy with the cool car? That was
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, that's awesome. I like that.
so the car works. Keep it out.
All right.
Car straws.
It'll come out
Car
again.
straw votes.
That car taught me a lot. It was one of those things where I kind of look at it the same way I look at doing anything new. I started out not having any idea about body work or paint or restoration in general. I didn't know how to weld, and I took that car in, I stripped it all the way down, and I got out the books and I learned how to do everything. And when I failed,
It helps to have a nice shop behind your house.
it doesn't hurt. I was gonna say, Mr. Opolka here can testify to that. But
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing, so I'd fail, and I'd start over, and I'd just keep doing it until I got it right. And I'm pretty happy with the results. So
It is an eye-catching car, man. I'll tell you what.
I appreciate
it. So this race, as of right now, and we pointed out again that it's the filing deadline has not passed, so someone else can enter. But currently, you have one opponent, and we don't want to use opponent as a bad word here. I don't know what else to call him. David Hurst, who
co-candidate.
Co-candidate, yes.
That's a much better
I
word.
like that.
It's much less adversarial.
Yeah. And I think Ed, you're one of the ones that has improved the situation in campaigning over the last few years. So, adversarial, I think, is you want to work together with whoever it is to help the city out. But what are your thoughts on David? David filed first, and so you made an active choice to run against him. What are your thoughts behind that?
Well, I put a lot of thought into it. I'd planned on filing before it became open, and in fact, David and I had a long conversation about it. We talked on the phone and we discussed it. This is the first time and only time I've ever had a chance to interact with him. So I didn't know anything about him, and I wanted to know. I heard he was going to file for the seat, and I said, well, I picked up the phone and called him and said, let's get to know each other a little bit, because here's my thoughts on it. If he is everything that I would want in that seat, it saves me, beating my head against this wall and running again. And it's a great day and everything's wonderful. And for the most part, honestly, David's not a bad guy from what I can tell. He seems to be a very nice man. He's very intelligent. He's got a great personality and a strong technical background. The one thing that weighed on me and that propelled me to run was the fact that he is a developer. I mean, that's how he introduced himself to me. When I asked him he says, well, I'm an architect and a developer. And then, he went on to tell me about all of his involvement with the city, and it's all with the Economic Development Board, and it's driving growth. And I mean, even his slogan is building Midlothian. And it's just in my heart. It's like, I don't see how somebody who's made that their whole life can separate that viewpoint from the decisions that they're going to make, and to be able to look at it from everybody else who may not like development and may be trying to, avoid that in the town, or at least slow it down a little bit. So I looked at it from the standpoint of, my whole position going into the last election was that I wanted to control growth a little bit. I wanted to make sure that we're following, the plan for the city that has been laid out in advance, and to stop what's been happening with all the planned developments coming in with where developers are basically changing the rules and laying out their own plan for the city. And I said, you know what? I've got to run against that, and I couldn't stand seeing another unopposed election. It drives me nuts in this town how many times I've seen where nobody's willing to step up and run. And it's happened. It's not as bad as it used to be, but there were years and years where nobody would file.
Oh, they canceled so many elections because nobody was running.
Nobody was running.
Yeah.
And it just every time it tore my heart out. I know, and we've talked in the past about the fact that one of my biggest passions is getting people out to the polls. And I'm not just saying, my people out to the polls, but people in general. I mean, everybody in this community, if they would just get involved and show up and vote and get their voices heard, most of the things that people complain about would be solved.
Yeah, that was one of my things was, and John can attest to this, when I would say, hey, can I count on your vote? And they might say, no, I'm voting for somebody else. Well, you know what? Thank you for voting.
Exactly.
Thank you for getting up off your butt and walking your happy butt in there and voting. I don't care who you're punching the button for.
Yeah.
That's true. You hear, I don't know. It just seems like you hear more people complain about our elected officials than you see the numbers at the polls that voted. And that's a problem. You shouldn't have the right to complain if you didn't
vote.
Absolutely.
And in that same
common sense.
In that same thing, that something that you're kind of changing here is like, we are scaring off good candidates with our dirty politics elections. And I don't mean
2020 was the worst. And
2020 was the worst.
Especially what I saw in the school board elections.
Yeah.
That was vicious.
That was bad.
And I don't mean bringing up somebody's record.
You say 2020, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't mean bringing up somebody's record of how they voted. I mean, like, just some of the straight out lies.
Yeah.
And we've seen
Personal
candidates.
attacks.
Personal attacks.
Yeah.
We've seen candidates, somebody say something that oh, this candidate put porn on this person's Facebook page, or oh, this candidate did this, or oh, this candidate lied about this. Well, and none of it because it removes the onus from the liar. The first liar is the one that like
Gets believed.
gets believed.
Yeah.
So it's harder to disprove something than it is to prove it. Anyway, but I think that you're doing a great job of making sure that, because like you said, you're trying to draw more people out to the polls, whether it's you or not, or whether they're for you or not, by setting an example of how a race should be run.
You too, that last election's, in fact, 100% set an example.
Yeah.
Of how.
And even now,
Well, I couldn't have done that without also having Anna and,
Correct.
and the rest of the candidates.
Yeah.
Who, Ted didn't get nasty, but he didn't say anything positive.
Yeah.
He was very quiet.
Yeah. That's Ted.
But honestly, I feel like I made a good connection with Danny and McClendon too. I think he's a good man, and I think his heart's in the right place. We definitely don't agree on every issue,
Right.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
But I have respect for him. I think he's a good person, but that's what we need. We need more of that. We need people that respect each other's differences.
you disagree on the issues,
Exactly.
but it doesn't become a personality thing.
Civil discourse is lost in America.
Yeah.
Completely lost.
And you can't learn if all you hear is your own voice coming out of somebody else's mouth.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like people put themselves in echo chambers.
Well, so on that note, what thoughts do you have about the candidates in other races, the incumbents? Who are you looking forward to working with? Who might you have some concerns with?
Actually, everybody who was on the council this past run, I get along with well. So, I know everybody who's currently serving. Of the folks that are running, I don't know Alan McKeever. I do know Alan Moorman. I think he's a good stand-up guy, and he's definitely trying to do right. He's engaged in the community. He really helps. But I know Walter and what he does. So first off, let's start. Let's just go down the line.
You have a long personal relationship with Walter.
I
right?
do. We have a long history, and
it's okay to talk about this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, some of it's good, some of it's bad.
As with any long-term relationship, right?
So
Right, Tiffany?
let's just we'll go down the places.
You too.
So place one. People ask me, well, why didn't you run for place one? Well, I honestly really like Wayne. I like Wayne. Now, granted, he's definitely somebody that I don't agree with on every position. I mean, he was for annexation.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge stumbling
He was
block.
annexed himself.
And he was annexed himself, but he's also pro annexation, and he sees that is, he doesn't see the negatives in it that I see. But I mean, as a person and what he's done for this community, I really respect him, and so I deliberately chose not to run against Wayne.
Right.
Well, I think there were out of spaces on the ballot, right?
I mean, good Lord, 4 running on.
Well,
I guess it's 3.
this was
I guess it's
before
3.
this was before anything. I mean, because people have been pushing me to run again since the last election.
Since the last election.
I mean, so the moment the last election ended, people are you running the next?
I've seen that.
Yeah, I
seen
heard
that
immediately
myself.
after that was done, they said it'll be back next
Well,
year.
I had no intention of doing it.
Oh, really?
I really didn't, because I mean, it took a lot out
It's
of me.
a soul suck.
It killed me. And then on top of that, to have it go into a runoff, and it was it was painful. And there are things, even though I ran the most above board and campaign I could possibly run, and as kind as I could possibly be, I still had people attacking me.
Yeah.
I had people hacking my stuff. I had people from out of the state attacking me online. It's just, there was a lot of hate and a lot of nastiness, and it just all of that really kind of soured me. And the worst thing that soured me was the fact that hardly anybody showed up.
Yeah.
As hard as
Especially
I
in a
worked
runoff.
to get people there, we had like 1,300 people. I think it was just ridiculous.
Is this for the
runoff.
runoff?
Which-
Yeah.
That is terrible. But do you know what the turnout for the 2015 elections were? 200.
Yeah.
All right,
But
so
that's with and Anna and I both really worked hard to get people to the polls.
Yeah.
And even with that, we had just, I mean, And the other thing that kind of broke my heart was a lot of my friends. I mean, I've lived here a long time. I've lived here almost 20 years. I've got friends that I've had since we first moved here that didn't show up to vote.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And that really hurt.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, it's just like, you know, so all that combined, I really didn't feel like running again. But everybody who was in my camp last time, and a lot of the folks that were against me last time came to me. You know, people that were backing Anna,
Yeah.
people that were backing Ted came to me and said, Ed, we want you in, run again. So all that being said, I decided I was going to run again. And, you know, I started looking at the seats, and I said, well,
Did you say, well, will you vote?
I actually, yes, I've said that a lot, actually.
A note on that, and I think some people don't know about this, and other people have a misunderstanding of this. But the fact that you vote is public record.
Yes.
You know, when you go in and you show your ID to that nice lady with the computer, they put your name on a list that is public record. And so if you cast a vote, your name appears. And I can tell you this from experience. Every candidate and every treasurer and everybody is daily getting a list of who voted during early voting, and we see the names on there, and so we know who voted, when they voted, and if you didn't, and by process of elimination, if you didn't vote. Now there is some confusion, and I know some kind of high-profile people.
Wait a minute. So you're telling me that if I go early, and I don't mean to interrupt you,
No.
if I was to early vote on a Tuesday, by Wednesday, you were
By
running,
Tuesday
you
night.
By Tuesday night,
you
we would have a
know
list that had
I
your name on it.
personally
Yes.
voted.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yes.
So you
It's-
guys,
it's
And that
sourced
is
from
not-
the city.
And that is not something that can be sealed. I mean,
It's
so
public record.
So you guys, are you guys daily pulling to see how many votes you got?
I did.
yeah.
Well,
Oh, I mean,
okay.
yeah, I
now,
did.
now,
I did.
now this
You
is
can't-
this
you
is a
can't do it like that,
clarification that I wanted to point out. Okay,
Yeah.
so your name will show up. It can't be sealed. It can't be hidden. Okay, so everybody can find out who voted.
And
now,
for who?
No.
No.
So
Not-
That is federally protected.
That is-
That is completely private.
that is
That's why-
absolutely.
But if it's partisan, it'll tell you what
ironclad.
partisan.
It'll tell.
No.
It'll tell what if it's in a runoff. Or I'm sorry, if
A
it's in
primary.
a primary, it will
Yeah.
say if you chose when you walk up and they ask you, do you want a Republican or a Democratic ballot? You can choose one of those two ballots. That choice does show up. It does show
Yeah.
whether
Right.
you
In the
voted
primary.
on. Yes, it'll show whether you chose a Democratic or Republican
Republican
ballot.
And that
ballot.
is the only time in the state of Texas that you declare a party is
Well,
during our public
and
or during
even
the
then
primaries.
there are plenty of instances of people cross voting to
Change the outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like
It's strategic
if you're
voting.
if you're say a Republican, you might choose to vote in the Democratic primary in order to raise the profile of someone who might have less of a chance
Yeah.
in the actual election.
Or in our scenario, in the county here, or well, I'm not in the county, but the county elections here are decided, won and lost in the primaries.
Right.
And you may know somebody that might make a great, like, I don't know,
Secretary,
county commissioner,
yeah.
something like that, but they're running as a Democrat. And if you can't just go, well, I want to vote for this one person on this Democrat ticket and go vote for anybody else.
Right.
You may, and not only that, but the presidential elections are already usually decided before, like not the actual election, but the primaries
And
are.
to be clear, even on the primaries, nobody can tell who you voted for
No.
in the primaries.
Nope.
Just which ballot you chose, and then so
Toons is the driving cat could be running as a Democrat, and you could
Right.
vote. You go Toons is the driving cat because you know that Toons can't actually hold the office.
right. So anyway, there's a lot of misunderstanding there, and a lot of people are completely unaware that your voting record is public record. Yeah. So
So okay, I've got a question. You said that you were compelled, or not compelled, but you were motivated to vote after annexation. So annexation is obviously off the table now.
Oh yeah.
So what is your hot button now?
Well, so it was it wasn't annexation as much as it was the process by which we were annexed.
Yeah.
And when I watched that process, and one of the main things that really triggered me to get involved was I had volunteered to be on the committee that basically worked out the details for the annexation.
Okay.
And I watched, there were other folks that volunteered for that committee, and I watched who they picked. And it was picked by the city council, and they literally went through and they picked the individuals that were all pro-annexation. And
That does happen.
And everybody who was against it was left off. And there was no representation whatsoever. And so all the terms by which, so my personal annexation, the only thing that we got was that our trash company that we'd had for 15 years, we had to fire them and choose the city's, or use the city's trash. Other than that, the only thing that I got was a lot more taxes.
Yeah.
So, what other services would you have gotten?
Well, we don't get any services.
Well, no. What services are you saying you're missing out on?
Oh, so there was a question about the sirens for early warning sirens.
Oh, okay.
To have that in our area. If we're going to have that, sidewalks, road, any type of road improvements. We were on an oil road for many years after the election. Or sorry, after the annexation, to where during the summertime you drive down the road and it's rolling up on your tires. It's just
Plainview is a pretty major road at this point, and it's still terrible.
Yeah, and I was on Skinner, so which is even worse.
Skinner's.
So looking
bad.
at the roads, there was a lot of things like that I would have liked to have seen built into the annexation. That says, okay, you know what, if we're going to come in and we're going to take your taxes, we're going to do these improvements into your neighborhood.
Yeah.
None of that happened. There was no improvements pushed in whatsoever. And so from that, I realized what it was. It was literally just we want your money because we have some projects that we need to fund, and so we're coming to take your money, which is what it turned out to be. And it was frustrating and kind of upset me. And it got me paying more attention to what the city was doing. So for the first time, it kind of opened my eyes. I'd always been, leaning towards libertarian, where I know we got a dyed-in-the-wool libertarian here,
Hey!
But I was always that way myself. I was always
I'm still here.
That there shouldn't be any good government at all. That government shouldn't exist. Almost to that extreme. But now, I do understand that the government does serve purposes. It is there for the betterment of the community, but we can't let it run itself.
If we're gonna have it, let's make it better.
Let's make it better, and let's make sure it's serving the people that it's meant to serve.
Okay, so we just talked about annexation, but what's your current hot button?
Well, currently, what I'm looking at is the fact that all of the decisions that everybody's complaining about right now, the all of this massive growth that we have, all these planned developments and all that, all those decisions took place 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is all stuff that was decided a long time ago. Well, since annexation has basically locked our borders, we're not expanding anymore. So at this point, what's left is what is going to shape the rest of Midlothian going forward. So I look at this election and the next couple as being fundamental for what Midlothian becomes. Because right now we have the ability to still make some decisions that are going to be enormously impactful as to how our community looks when it is built out. We can either be a Cedar Hill or we can be a Grapevine. There's differences. There's huge differences there, and those are decided at the council.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're decided 10 years ahead of time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I want to be part of that because
Minimum, yeah.
I look at this place. This is my home. I mean, this is my kids were born here. This is where we live. My wife has had, she's the eye doctor at Walmart and has been since it opened.
Yeah. That's actually
Well,
how I met Ed. I don't I don't think anybody knows that story, and it's not that great of a story, but like I was driving down the road and I saw Ed in his flashy blue Mustang with his campaign sign taped to the side.
Yeah. Well, Ed,
and I'll give you at least
swung
some clear
around,
tape and not duct tape.
and
It could've been
I
worse.
followed him into the Walmart parking lot, and he pulled up in front of Walmart, and I just pulled up beside him blocking traffic, and I was like, well, first I asked him if he wanted to race.
He's like, hey.
I was in my fast car, so I was like, hey, want
I
to race?
was like, wait, so it just went.
So let me ask you a question. You made a comment about, we can either go Grapevine or Cedar Hill. You know, as a guy who grew up in DeSoto and also a guy who just bought a new house in Midlothian, and I'm not going anywhere. I mean,
He means
this
County
is-
Midlothian, not
but
really
but
Midlothian.
still, but I just buying a house and that magnitude is a commitment to stay here. You know,
Absolutely.
growing up in DeSoto was a great town. You know.
But you're not there now.
No, and the funny thing is when I moved to Midlothian, I met so many people that went to high school here that are my age and older, raising their kids here. Some of them even have grandkids, like John and Gary Vineyard and Brett Kemp. I mean, the list goes on.
I ain't got no grandkids.
That he knows
No,
of.
but I'm just saying. But okay. For instance, you know, there's others that have kids. Anyways, they never left. Their kids never left.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody from my 1997 DeSoto graduating class that still lives in DeSoto.
Yeah.
Now there could be, but nobody
There's
that
a
I
reason for that.
Nobody that I know, and there's a
They got
reason for
pushed
that.
out.
Even our chief of police,
Moved down
Carl
here?
Smith, I've known him very well as a teenager.
Well, he moved down when he found out that Rob was down here.
Yeah, he's always had to keep an eye on me, and that's okay. But how do we keep this from? And I'm sorry, but keep it from turning into DeSoto and Cedar Hill.
It's just what we were talking about, those choices that are being made. You know, one of the biggest problems we have is that through all the planned developments, we increase the density much faster and much more extreme on our roads and on our schools than what the master plan for the city had intended. So it was all zoned out. We had zoning in place that said, acre lots here. We're going to downtown. We're going to have
Comprehensive plan.
Yeah, comprehensive plan. We're going to have higher density downtown. We're going to have walking distance, businesses and everything. And then as you move out, it gets a little bit more sparse. And then to where you're out at the outskirts of town, and you'll have much larger. I don't want to say estates, but larger parcels.
They're urban, or they're rural lots because it goes
Rural
rural,
lots.
suburban, urban, and then village, I think, or
And
something.
so, but by going in with the planned developments and saying, instead of doing one house per acre, we're going to put 6 houses per acre, all of a sudden you have, in areas where it was never intended, much higher density.
Right.
Much higher density. And so the schools are suffering. They're way behind. They can't build schools fast enough. The classes are crowded, and even with all the taxes we're paying for the schools, they still can't keep up.
Schools, roads,
The roads.
sewer.
I mean, just driving down the road here to
Police,
get here tonight.
fire.
I'm sitting there looking at all these developments going in while dodging huge potholes all the way down the road. So, and I'm just thinking,
By the way, that was approved in 2016 to handle that road. I'm just going to put that out there.
Which road are you talking about?
Walnut Grove.
Walnut Grove.
Well, they do have a sign on there. You're not supposed to have big, like construction video.
Oh, the
construction trucks.
No
Oh,
trucks.
Sorry, the echo in my ears. But yeah, they put these signs, a weight limit out there, but I don't see any.
Enforcement of it.
Yeah, and a lot of it is because they have destination on the road, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of trucks that do not have destination on this road, and they run through all night long, and all they doing is just beating the hell out of the road.
Yeah.
We have all these contracting companies up the road here. I think they should take the farm to market road to their destination rather than cutting through on South Walnut Grove Road. But this is a shortcut, so this is the way they
Shorter.
take.
Well, again, Walnut Grove was, there was a decision made back in 2016, 7 years ago, that is currently defining how things are going on.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, and you talked about the farm to market roads. 663,
1387.
You've got these roads that are TxDOT is ignoring, and they're really struggling.
Did you
One of
have
the
any?
reasons-
Does
one-
the city council have any?
Absolutely. So the city council can pick up the phone. They can call the state representatives. They can call Brian Harrison. They can call Jake Elsey and say, why are we not getting the funds to fix these roads?
Or the commissioners up there?
Well, you can.
Yeah, the
you can-
county
you can
commissioner,
go in
but yeah,
every
but the-
direction, but the
Paul
county,
Perry.
Paul
Yeah.
Perry,
Yeah.
and you can get these folks involved. You can go and you can start being that squeaky wheel that gets the funding for your town, and that's what has to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things that I absolutely intend to do is to go and not just read the agenda and vote on what's coming up that day. And
Right.
But instead, be proactive and get out there and start looking at these problems that we have and fixing them. So
just point of order, Jake is now in the U.S. representative. So when we want to ring that bell, that means we're real serious.
Yes.
Yeah. When we're talking
I think
federal.
it's Birdwell. Birdwell's our
Brian-
senator.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got the Bryans.
Yep.
Yeah.
Harrison and Birdwell.
Correct. But absolutely, you're.
We're real serious when we're ringing Jake's
Hey,
bell.
if we have to, we have to.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things where if we don't do it, it just won't happen.
Yeah.
If we just sit back and wait for TxDOT to get around to it, it's going to be a sad day. So.
That's absolutely true. I mean, if you look at 1387, they've talked about widening that for now 6 or 7 years. Loop 49 or Loop 40 or whatever it is, the one that cuts through Mansfield, Cedar Hill, Midlothian, Red Oak, all the way. It's been on the books for over 60 years. It hasn't happened yet.
Why?
It's usually because of land procurement.
Yeah.
Same reason for Walnut Grove.
I've had people tell me, if you're going to get anything done in, city council, it's going to take you, 6-10 years to get something done. It shouldn't.
No.
It shouldn't. If you really get in there and you make it happen, you can get things done in a normal term. We can make these changes. We just have to be proactive and motivated and make it happen.
Okay, so
what's your vision for 10 years from now? You said you've lived here for a long time.
Speaking of changes.
When you close your eyes and you say, Midlothian, this is what I picture it's going to look like because this is what I want it to look like in 10 years. Well, and are those different? What you picture it and what you want it to look like?
I still picture going to DT's and sitting in the non-smoking section for breakfast.
Was there a way? Was there? Was that possible?
There was a table in the corner, from what I hear.
There was.
I mean, did you get your own?
That was the
oxygen
non-smoking
mask?
section.
But honestly, I love DT's.
Yeah, my husband loved it. He's like, that was my Sunday routine.
For me, one of the greatest things was driving. For years I worked up in Dallas, and I would drive home and I would cross that one lane wooden bridge in front of Wayne's house.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I crossed that bridge, it was like everything was behind me.
You were home.
I was home.
I'm home.
And so I still have that vision of Midlothian. The old tree tunnels over all the roads. Where you drive, and so it's hard for me to let go of that memory and that vision of Midlothian. But I want to capture some of that. I want a downtown that is. There's so many communities where you go and they have this vibrant, living downtown where people walk everywhere. And
Burleson-esque.
Yeah.
Burleson, Denton, Granbury.
Exactly, where you can go and there's all these great mom and pop shops that are community owned and they're built from the community for the community's needs. I've wanted to build a bicycle shop here for almost 20 years. And
That would. I think that would
Yeah,
fly.
I wish you would.
The closest one, I think, is B&B.
B&B up in
I was gonna
Cedar
say
Hill.
Cedar
She
Hill.
runs- they have a great
And
shop
you know
up there and
what?
all that,
With the Lawson building being transformed
Yeah.
and with the local businesses
some
we have with the
opportunities.
Twisted Sisters, you've got Big D's Barbecue. Of course, you got Branded Burger. I'm sure something's going to go in the Campesano spot.
There's still space in that building over there next to Waffle House.
Is there?
Oh, like with Coco
Well,
Nails
and
and,
that's-
the
Yeah, yeah.
CBD
Uh-huh.
shop.
But
But see,
yeah.
Yep.
that's the kind of vision I have. You have that downtown, and then we go back towards, we push back towards our master plan and start, slowing down all of these,
Right.
high density developments.
And then what about like downtown? You go to places like Burleson, I think Grapevine, downtown Grapevine as well.
Oh, yeah,
And
yep.
this may be, a little, too fast paced for this particular podcast, but, more outdoor events. In Burleson, you can actually walk out with a glass of wine and
Grapevine
or
too.
whatnot.
Grapevine also.
But their city hall's not downtown.
Yeah, they are.
Oh yeah, they all are.
We do have the wine walk here, that
Yeah,
takes place.
yeah.
and-
Twice a year.
Yeah, twice a year.
Hopefully every year.
There you go. And we can do more events like that. But that community, that sense of community, it's being lost right now. And I'd kind of like to see that come back. You know, I've got a neighbor who just moved in next door to me, and I've been over a couple times and knocked on the door and nobody answered. And it's like I still don't even know my next door neighbor.
Yeah.
That just rips my heart out. You know, when I grew up, I knew everybody in a 10-mile radius. I mean, everybody, their aunts and uncles and
Yeah.
second cousins. So it's really hard to live in a community where we don't have community.
My 7-year-old
Or
still
it's-
says she's going to marry the little boy that moved away 2 years ago, lived next door.
Oh,
He would put on aftershave and cologne to come over and play.
he was like
Show up with
6.
He was like
flowers.
6.
He was 6.
There were no flowers, but yeah, she still says
she
it.
was 5. He was 6.
Yeah.
You know, you genuinely care for this community. I can tell.
I do.
I can just tell.
I really do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this.
And like I said, it takes a piece of your soul every time.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're a Potterhead or not, but I call it a Horcrux.
what?
A Potterhead, Harry
Oh,
Potterhead.
Potterhead.
Potter.
Well,
Potterhead. Oh no, Harry Potter. But yeah, no, I call it a Horcrux. You know, it takes little pieces of dies every time.
Our whole family has read the books and watched the movies, and so yeah.
Oh, we just
we've
sorted
enjoyed
the dogs. Yeah, we just
I
sorted
went
the dogs.
to
by
Hogwarts
sorting
or
it.
whatever it was when I was
Nerd
in
alert.
Disney World.
That's not Disney. That's Universal.
Or Universal.
Get
You
it
know where I
straight.
went.
I'm sure you
Yeah.
call Batman Marvel too.
No.
Oh gosh.
okay.
No, but what else do we got going on coming up? When the election date is?
May 6th.
May 6th, and early voting will start. Do we even have a date?
April 24th through
Yeah.
May 2nd.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basically the 2 weeks before.
Yeah,
Okay, and you've got a Facebook page.
I do.
we'll
Ed
put-
for Place 5.
And we'll put that in the comments and or the
I also have
description.
the website www.edforplace5.com.
Ed for place 5. All right. There
You know
go.
what? I bought www.timwilkins for Midlothian.com just in
case.
so I can sell it back to him.
I'm gonna
at
check
a
What a
that
waste
out
of
right
money.
now. Hold
What a
on.
waste
I'm
of
checking. I'm
money.
fact checking Matt.
That's funny.
TimWilkins.com, TimWilkinsforMidlothian.com.
I know he
I-
owns. He can't own TimWilkins.com.
I used to own TimWilkins.com, and I
Yeah.
actually sold it to the Tim Wilkins that owns it now. He's a comedian, so he's actually famous and wanted it, and I was like, cool.
Yeah.
Made money on it.
Yeah. Anyways,
No, it's still available.
Yeah.
well, Ed, we really appreciate you coming on the show. This is the first
appreciate
time
the
I've officially
opportunity.
met you, and
Yeah.
man, I'll say it again. You genuinely care for this community.
He still won't race me.
I can tell that, and I wish you the best of luck. And
I appreciate it.
I'd like to have you
Really.
back when it's all said and done.
Well, hopefully,
Hopefully it's
it'll
as-
be
He's hoping it
as a councilman
as an incumbent. Yes,
and not
that's what
as
he's
a
hoping
two-time
for.
loser.
I know how it feels, dude. I know
But
it doesn't
you know
get
what?
better.
I've said this before. I lost to Anna, but it was one of those things where when I met Anna, had I known Anna as well as I know her now, I probably wouldn't have run against her, to be honest with you. I mean, most likely I wouldn't have run against her. I really respect her, and it was one of those things where yes, losing sucks, no
Yeah.
matter what.
Yeah.
Losing sucks.
There's still
It's
somebody you'd
never
rather
fun,
lose to.
But
Yes.
if I had to lose to somebody,
Yeah.
I could definitely respect her. And honestly, from what I can tell, I do respect David Hurst, and I'd like to I look forward to the chance to get to know him the same way. I hope I'm wrong about his focus on being a developer, but regardless, I'm sure he and I will be able to be friends at the end of this as well.
So we have just a couple minutes before we're going to wrap up. So just as a parting thought, do you have any thoughts on a direction that you want to see the city go specifically, or anything that you'd like to see the city pursue bonds on in order to develop in particular?
How do you feel about bonds? That's a better question there.
Well,
I saw your face.
So
That's a
I'll
longer
just-
question.
I'll just go on record and saying I am not for spending money that you don't already have.
okay.
I don't do it personally.
Sure.
I don't have credit card debt. I don't have debt because I don't believe that you should spend money you don't have. And so when I look at bonds, I look at it as writing checks on future people, and I don't like that. I honestly feel like you need to live within your budget.
Do you think that there's a viable alternative to bonds that with the state regulations the way they are? See,
That's the
you're
big
right.
thing.
I mean, that's the thing. So I don't like it. You know, it's a devil that you're forced to dance with. You know, and the thing is that being said, they need to be used very sparingly and only when it's required. And it shouldn't
Would
just
you
be
prefer-
Which is pretty much it's required for pretty much all growth
but
at this point.
it shouldn't be it shouldn't be looked at as a piggy bank that you can run to.
Would you prefer them not come to you to ask and just write the check?
No.
Because
No,
I mean that's what it is.
No, so the thing is it's not about the taxation. It's
Yeah.
about the spend.
Yeah.
It's about how the money is spent, and is it spent with the interest of the citizens first. In other words, you know, you can buy a Cadillac or you can buy a Corolla.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
if a Corolla does the exact same thing as a Cadillac, why are we spending the money?
Oh, I've said that time.
So okay,
So-
so the last city bond round, two things that were approved was a new. I call it the police station. It is the safety center
Yep.
because there will be fire admin there. That and this rec center. And as you, I'm sure, know, people are blowing up about the rec center
Yes, they
because we
are.
got to have the pool for the kids or
it's
whatever it is.
the natatorium.
Well,
to
you know
them.
what?
To them,
my
yes.
daughter swims. I know we would use it.
Oh yeah.
We would definitely use a natatorium if it's here. That being said, if you look at natatoriums as a monetary spend for municipalities, I've never seen it be a good expenditures. It's always a tremendously big spend that takes an enormous amount of spend to maintain, and there's a lot of risk involved for the city as well. So that being said, you know, it's pros and cons.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's why they said they were gonna lease out the O&M to YMCA, have them shoulder the operations and maintenance. We just give them the building.
Yeah, I've seen that work, and I've seen it work well in other areas. So
All right. Do you have any parting words?
I hope you vote for me.
I hope you vote.
I hope
Period.
you vote. I will say one thing. You know, I got
but
involved.
be informed before you vote.
Coming out of the last election, I told you I was going to try. You know, you had asked me what I was going to do after that, and I
Yeah.
said I was going to really work to get people involved, and I did. I went out and I became the precinct chairman for my voter district, and I've been out. That's one of my primary objectives: is getting people to the polls,
Yes.
getting them
Please
involved,
do.
getting them registered, getting them out there, and getting them to vote. So you
That's
know.
important.
And so that's probably my biggest push is I want to see people involved.
Yeah.
And I want to see people
absolutely.
come out to the workshops and the meetings and all that as well and put their input in. Let the city know exactly what they expect from it.
Yeah.
Midlothian, if you want to reach Ed Gardner, hit him up on Facebook. We'll put the link in the description here, and I'm sure he's very accessible and would be glad to talk to just about anybody.
Yes, sir.
But vote. As Tim says, vote informed.
Vote informed.
But if you don't, Ed said he'd take it. So,
I'm not going to turn it down. So.
all right. See you guys next time. We're out.